I'm going to give a shout out to Gatepath, who partnered with Rident Park to put on this event, because we basically put our minds together and realized that this is really something that's critically needed to the communities that we serve. So Community Gatepath, you have some information. Many of you know a lot about Gatepath, but basically this agency is really brand new. It's only 96 years young, and soon to have its 100th anniversary in a very short period of time. So that's pretty amazing for any organization to have existed for 100 years. And believe me, the trajectory of growth and new programs is basically accelerating. So this agency is doing a phenomenal job of serving much needy populations of all ages, of those with special needs and disabilities, from very earliest age all the way to full adulthood. And so that's a very special mission they have, and obviously they must be doing something right to basically be around for that long a time. Then Rident Park is a little bit younger than 96 years, and this is an agency that came together by a number of founding families who really realized they needed to have a vision for providing a unique supported living environment for those with multiple disabilities, because housing, in case anybody didn't notice, is a gigantic crisis. And we actually tried to have a housing track in this program, but because so much meat for all of the subjects that we as families and caregivers need to cover, we couldn't do it and keep you here before midnight. So we thought that that was something that maybe we even think about as a future event. But housing is what Rident Park is all about. And but mainly we're going to focus on some other aspects in addition to housing. But at this time, I'd just like to do a shout out for Brian Nider. Where is Brian? Brian is the CEO of Gatepath. Brian is a humble man, but I'm going to say a few words about him. He spent a big part of his career right here in Silicon Valley working at Electronic Arts. So all those games that are driving you crazy at home tonight, see Brian. But of course he's ex-EA, so it's not his fault anymore. But incredible company. Brian was a very top executive there for a number of years in all different functions. He also served for about 12 years on the board of directors of Gatepath. If I sometimes slip and say Community Gatepath, that was our name for a long time, but we really made it simpler and just basically really called ourselves Gatepath, because that's what all of you tend to call the agency, so Gatepath. But he came on board a little less than 2 years ago after doing a search for our previous CEO, who had been on the job for over 27 years. Many of you might remember or know of Cheryl Young, who was really much lauded leader, who really took Gatepath through many iterations, through many crises and up and down turns of what it takes to run an agency like that. But she finally retired with great fanfare, and Brian took over that position, and things have just been going phenomenal. But Brian also really wanted to focus on a career that basically would say it's important to drive shareholder value when you're in a publicly traded corporation, but to basically do things that make a difference, significance into the community. And this gives Brian a tremendous platform to exercise that part of his character and psyche. So we're very fortunate to have him, and I'm glad that he could sponsor this event with us. At this time, I'd like to kind of set up why are we here. And in my work and by the way, full disclosure, I'm the president and co-founder of Rident Park, but being a Gemini, I get to have more than one job, so I shift my hat around. I'm also a long-standing board member of Gatepath. So just so you know where I stand. That's why I'm standing in the middle here, right? But so I have very strong familiarity with what Gatepath's about, and also it's very complimentary that a Rident Park is focusing more on the housing piece than Gatepath. So, but in talking to families about possible residency at Rident Park, 90+% of those families, and some of those families are in this room today, basically are really not clear on what are the steps of developing a lifespan plan. In fact, some of them would say, what is a lifespan plan. So today, you're going to get a framework of just what a lifespan plan, say that 10 times, will look like. So that you have the basic framework that you could begin to work over time. Because this is not an overnight success. This isn't one meeting with an attorney. This is a process that's very interactive, basically in a team-based approach to make this happen. But that was the thing that really struck me. And so I think it's safe to say that almost everybody in this room is basically trying to answer two proverbial questions. The first question that I'm pretty sure is on everybody's minds or have asked themselves is, what's going to happen to my child when I'm gone? That is universal. It doesn't matter what social strata, it's completely neutral as to who we are and what our walk of life is. It's something that we share. And it isn't one of those things that money alone can solve. It's really knowing the right questions, the answers, and developing a set of methodical, integrated plans to basically come up with this lifespan plan. The other proverbial question is, I sort of alluded to earlier, is, okay, I really want to know what's going to happen to my child when I'm gone. But the 1B part of that question is, where are they going to live for the rest of their life? And without getting into the weeds on that, there are models out there that our children at age 59 would actually age out of a residence and have to move to an elder care facility. Now, we're talking about the state of California. Each state has its own rules. Some of them are even worse than California, but at least California has an option. For instance, Rident Park is a lifespan residency that none of the residents would have to ever leave unless by their own choice. Where in licensed facilities, they actually would be, at least the law is on the books, that tentatively could ask them to leave at age 59. I'm just thinking of the trauma of that. So I just sort of set that scene up. So that's why that 1B question is critical. But today we're going to focus on the first one, is what's going to happen to my child when we're gone. What we're going to do is we're going to borrow a page out of Socrates' book. So those of you who are Greek scholars, you might recall that a long time ago, more than 5 years ago, Socrates developed a method of questioning that was really designed to provoke thought around complex ideas and issues. And so that has stood the test of time. So we're going to apply a Q&A format that tries to humbly borrow from the great Socrates, which basically is not just looking for yes or no answers, but actually make the answers begin to provide light and solutions to a problem. So hopefully we achieve that objective. So thanks to Socrates. But this isn't going to just be me or my colleagues up here talking. We're basically in this together. So we're going to basically ask questions three ways. I'm going to lead off with some questions to kind of get the ball rolling. Some of you have already filled out question cards. And please, throughout this process, if something comes to mind, fill out a question card, pass it to one of our folks who will basically be, kind of raise a hand with the card or something, and they'll collect it. And then they'll be brought up to me, and I'll do my level best to try to process those and answer and make sure that our panelists address those. And then the third way is we're going to turn the spotlight on all of you and ask you from the floor, because a lot of people want to really hear what questions you might ask or what question you might ask. And let me just put your mind at ease. There are no dumb questions. Why is that? Because I've asked them already, and so I've already done that for you. And really, there is nothing off limits here that if it's on your mind, please take advantage of this and ask it. Of course, time is limited, even though this is, we built in quite a bit of time for the session. Before we know it, this is going to be gone. So ask those questions and participate, and I hope that you get a lot. But the overarching goal here is there's no way with this amount of people, with these kinds of questions and subjects, that you can come away today with your A to Z lifespan plan. The best thing you can come away with is more questions at the end of the session than you had when you came in. Why? Because this is borrowing from Socrates, because it makes you become enlightened and you have a greater understanding of really what is entailed. And those expanding list of questions will help you navigate to resources like being represented up here to really help you get your answers tailored to your family situation. So I just want to kind of give you the philosophy behind this. This is a unique forum. Most of the time, these kinds of sessions are seminar driven, where you get 1,000 PowerPoints for questions, some of which you don't have, they give you answers to. That's a great format, but we chose to do a town hall forum on purpose to really make this about your questions and questions that I'm going to frame to the panelists. Is that a deal? Okay. Well, so at this time, I just want to briefly, you have the bios of our panelists. You probably saw them at registration, but what I'd like to do is just briefly introduce my colleagues here. On my left, we have Dan Cutter from Merrill Lynch. He's vice president, but really uniquely is a co-founder of their special needs group. And I frankly did not know of the existence of that kind of it. So Dan lives and breathes our world every day. He's not an attorney, but he's basically on the financial and wealth management side, but has deep knowledge of special needs trust, because all of this works together organically. So Dan will have a lot of good things, and please, ask your questions of him early and often. And then Michael Gilfix goes by Mike, only when he's a good guy, and when his mother's mad at him, it's Michael, right? Michael is a true nationally renowned expert in the field of estate planning around the aged, as well as around the special needs category. He has written books. Some of them are in the back table for you to take, so that you have an extra resource for coming here today. But Mike really has a deep knowledge of special needs trusts and things that surround the estate planning process, arriving at a lifespan plan. So thank you for coming, Mike. Over here is Mercy Hall. She is the founder of the Hall Law Group, in just Hall Law in San Francisco. Also has some overlap with Mike in terms of special needs trusts, but one of her specialties is in the conservatorship area, which is very controversial. And we're going to talk a little bit about the controversy of to conserve, not to conserve, and what are the alternatives. And so that's going to be an interesting one for those of you who have not yet gone down the path of conserving your child or thinking maybe you don't want to do that. So thank you, Mercy, for coming. And then last but not least is Jim Hike. This gentleman is really unique because most of his career until the last about 11 years was really serving the community as an executive director of a regional center in the Sacramento area for quite a number of years. He's worked for the Department of Rehab, so a lot of state and governmental positions around services to our community. And then I make a joke that he left the dark side and moved as an advocate and consultant helping families go back up against the regional centers and the agencies where services that we need come from. And for those of you that are really in the throes of trying to manage the life of your child who's receiving services, let's say from a regional center or IHSS or all these other things, it's not easy. And sometimes you get the wrong answers from the regional center. So Jim is going to have a lot of insight from being on both sides of that street that we can greatly benefit from. So thank you for coming.